and they would coach them through the dialogue and make sure they got the performance they wanted. Mel Blanc was a genius at pulling something out of nothing, because he could basically look at one drawing or a set of drawings and he could find a performance. He was also a darn good singer. Mel started on radio.
Hello, young man. I sort of remember you from someplace. You're,
I'm a private sad sack.
Another chapter in our story, the life of Sad Sack. We pick up our story when the Sad Sack was first born. The proud father looks at the tiny bundle and says to the mother, "You're supposed to keep the baby, not the stork." But the Sad Sack proves to his parents that he is a brilliant child. At the end of his very first year in school, he comes running home with the happy news.
Mama, I got skipped to the next class. They gave me I've been expelled.
Oh yes, I knew Mel Blanc very well. He had a wonderful talent. He came to the studio the same year I did, in 1936. But he tried to get into that studio for maybe a year and a half, and whenever he would go to the fellow who was in charge, I think his name was Norman Spencer, and he did the music at that time, he hardly even looked at Mel, and he'd say, "No, we've got all the voices we need." But Mel would keep coming back because he wanted to get in there. And one day, Treg Brown was sitting at that desk. Norm wasn't feeling well. And so Mel came to him and he said, "I'd sure like to do some voices." And Treg said, "Well, let's hear what you can do." And he listens to Mel and he says, "Sit right here." And he goes and he gets Tex Avery and Chuck Jones and Frizz, and he says, "You got to hear this guy."
What's the matter, pal? You seem perturbed.
Yeah, I got a morale problem.
Do tell.
Now take me brother Tofu. There's a guy that's got a swell spot. He's doing things. Message center, codes, secret stuff. Gee, what a lucky guy.
Yeah? Well, let's have a look.
When we came across a situation in which we had to change Snafu from one thing into another, like a fairy princess would come down, you know, when you wish upon a star kind of a thing. Well, we couldn't imagine a bunch of guys in this situation we were talking about under the conditions in which they were viewing the film as having a dainty little fairy come down and hit Snafu. So I don't remember who invented the character, but we came up with a technical fairy, third class, was it? Whatever class it was, technical fairy third class. And he was a little cigar-chomping guy with a bristle, and his hat was on an angle, and he had wings, just like a fairy should have. And he was fairy dust, but he's a tough little man and a little rascal. And so he would tap Snafu when things would happen.
How the hell do you expect a guy to study with all that racket going on?
Study? Nuts. When I get at them Nazis, I ain't gonna clunk them over the head with no books. What you gotta give them dopes is a belly full of lead.
Hello, Superman.
Huh? Well, if I was Superman, I bet you I'd show him plenty.
Okay, chum. As technical fairy first class, I now pronounce you Snafu-man.
Oh, boy! Enemies of democracy, beware!
There was a model sheet for Private Snafu. All the animators had to draw the character to look the same way, but the different director units at Warner Brothers doing those Private Snafu cartoons had their own style. I mean, Chuck Jones's unit had particular animators, his point of view. They did it a certain way. Frank Tashlin was an animator who was aspiring to work in live-action films, which he later did, and his films have a more live-action approach to the angles, and the direction of the cartoon. So his cartoons are easy to spot. And even in the Private Snafu series, you can tell the Frank Tashlin cartoons from the Chuck Jones cartoons, which were more cartoony. Well, occasionally there was an appearance by Daffy Duck or Bugs Bunny in a Private Snafu cartoon. That was really an in-joke because it was the Warner studio that was doing those films, and they just thought it was a quick gag in one of the cartoons that why not have Bugs Bunny make a quick cameo. Bugs Bunny was such a star during the wartime years that his appearance was a morale booster. He represented the American everyman.
What's up, Doc?
There's no holds barred in terms of the code of ethics. You know, Snafu can drop his pants at the bat of an eyelash, so that you don't have the same restraints on Snafu that you might have on a character that's going to be in a theatrical release. And they were able to cover topics like why it's important to cover yourself with malaria netting in the middle of the jungles in Burma, because if you don't, you're going to get bit on the butt, and they'll quite literally show that, and you're going to get sick. So they were able to handle topics that were real, I wouldn't say controversial, but push the edge of acceptability, and portray them against this cartoony character, and the sheer acronym Snafu, you know, the situation normal all fouled up, indicates that that this guy constantly screwed up, and sort of the moral play was, you don't do what he does and you won't screw up.
I think that the cartoons exemplified the professionalism of the cartoonists who made them, and the writers who dreamed up the story essence, to be able to portray very simply the problem that they were trying to prove, or the point they were trying to make. And I think that was the best part of it. They didn't over-elaborate. They just went straight to the point, got the story told, and made Snafu or whoever look like a complete dope who came out great at the end.
Hey, you know, this is an important job I'm doing.
That's my boy who said that. Ha-cha-cha-cha.
Cartoons Go to War will continue in a moment.
Very racist in many ways, but that was the way of the times.
He'll be home.
Smile, please. How about Clark Kent? Did he get away?
No. No, he's still over there.
The real appreciation of those comic kinds of approaches were, I think, ways for the public to let off steam. They could go to the theaters, and if things were down and not too happy, or even if people had lost loved ones, they could at least go into the theaters and get some relief, and the comic part was great.
We're working with children, we're working with adults who had known Donald Duck, and the spirit of Donald and Mickey and the rest of the characters working on a war effort made that much more important. And I think that that's what created that great feeling of, well, we're doing our bit for the war effort.
Everybody, not just people in the cartoon business, but everybody seemed to be of the same spirit to get this war over and win it. War is always a tragic thing, but we had no choice in the matter, and I do feel that everybody in the country, with maybe a few exceptions, were all for the war effort and did whatever they could. You are a merry melody, and I'm just a Looney Tune. Oh, won't you sing a song to me right here underneath the moon? You are as sweet as you can be, and I'm just a crazy loon. Oh, won't you take a walk with me to the strains of a wedding tune?
It's ironic that the deadly serious enterprise of war could so successfully make use of a genre that's often been considered light entertainment. But films like Education for Death remind us of the power of animation to communicate on a tragic level as well. For the History Channel, I'm Roger Mudd. Thanks for watching.
Now you can...